Can I start? May I start?
Yes, Vidya, you are on air.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session 8, our last session for this annual conference of this year. Before we go into the main sessions, I want to give you a few housekeeping instructions. If there is a technical glitch and if you happen to abruptly close the participant, please log in back. And if you have any questions, please post it in the chat box and we will try to take up those questions at the end of the session or during our Teams meeting following this at 2 o'clock. Once again, with heartfelt thanks to the India Alliance for organizing and allowing us to be part of this initiative. We have our session 8, which is titled as Developing the Successful Research Manager. When we were planning this session, we invited views from both the research as well as the research management community, and we received wonderful abstracts. Based on the abstracts we received, what we have done is we have themed it into 4 vignette talks. Before we go into the vignette talks, I would request India Alliance to show the social media handles for the access details of this sessions. Thank you. The participants can take note of it. So the vignette talks will address basic skill sets that is required for a research manager to initiate or start off in these roles. These talks will be followed by broader talks which cover advancement in these roles. As an introduction to this vignette talks, we start with Dr. Rashmi Ramesh, who is a who is actually an administrative officer at the Institute of Public Health, and she is going to talk about the challenges in creating and managing a research management unit in a public health research institute. Following this, we will have Dr. Alpana Dave, who is an academic coordinator at the National Institute of Biomedical Genomics, and she is talking about the research manager as a multifaceted skilled professional. Following that, we have Dr. Tuhina Rastogi, who is a research manager at King George's Medical University, and she is talking about the job competencies and skill sets for research managers and exploratory research review. And following that, we have Dr. Ponnari Gotipati, whom you know has chaired several sessions of this conference. And she is a consultant grants manager at LV Prasad Eye Institute, and she will be talking about the 5 sutras for a successful career in research management in India. Let's start with Dr. Rashmi Ramesh.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Rashmi from Institute of Public Health, Bengaluru. Today, I'll be presenting on the topic, Creating and Managing a Research Management Unit in a Public Health Institute. To introduce my organization, Institute of Public Health, Bengaluru is established in 2005 by motivated value-based health professionals to strengthen the health systems in India. We work under 3 domains: research and action, education, public and policy engagement. Our research work is focused under 4 clusters: chronic condition and public policy, health services, health equity, health financing, and universal health coverage. To start with, I would like to start on with what is research management, which includes all the support functions at the institute to assist the PI to take off certain administrative burden on the researchers. So it includes all the functions from proposal development to the closure of the project. Coming to the evolution of research management and Institute of Public Health. So I have conducted a small survey among the senior researchers at the institute who have more than 6 to 8 years of experience. The data collected was transcribed and the broad themes that were brought up by the respondents were identified. So from 2005 to 2010, all the major administrative tasks were taken up by the researchers along with their existing research projects. From 2010 to 16, the need for the centralized research management ecosystem was felt at the institute and few processes and systems were introduced. In 2016, we met Dr. Savita from India Research Management Initiative and we discussed the core aspects of the research management. From then on, my capacity as a research manager is being built at the institute. So a few research management activities that have been happening at the institute from then on, the presentations that were made by myself and my colleague, the grant calls that are being circulated every fortnight, the IPH intranet, wherein all the institutional financial reports and few grant writing resources are also available, are being organized in the IPH intranet. We have also opened an account in Figshare where all the documents, research outputs will be displayed systematically. So based on the data collected, I would like to say that the research, as a research manager, I would like to say that the evolution of research management at IPH was organic in nature. It was organic in nature, and from the research research thing, we are moving into a research managers mode. Coming to the challenges that are faced in developing a research management structure at the institute includes the developmental challenges. That means certain processes are introduced, adhering to that processes and adapting to the requirements of the variety of researchers. The operational challenges include the pre-award, during the project, that is project management, and the post-award, the data management, and sustainability challenges, which include sustainability of the research managers themselves, since there are only limited funding opportunities for them. So based on the data collected, the research management and IPH was organic. Initially, it was managed by the researchers, which was person dependent, varied from project to project, and flexible. Now we are moving to a centralized research management structure, which is institutional dependent. I would like to conclude that while challenges are anticipated in each of the steps, establishing a research management unit in a public health research institute has additional challenges. That includes, it has a wide scope of research, but funding opportunities for research managers are very limited. There is no formal training for the research managers. The existing staff's capacity needs to be built as a research manager. There is a lack of template or a model in setting up a research management unit, since each institute requirements vary. Last but not the least, it involves the substantial time contribution of the senior researchers in addition to the efforts of the research manager. Thank you. I look forward for the Feb 21 conference and interacting with you all. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alpana, and in the next few minutes, I'll talk about how a research manager is capable of wearing different hats as and when required. So until this time last year, I was undergoing my postdoctoral training at LV Prasad Eye Institute in Hyderabad. And it was just before the national lockdown happened that I decided to switch gears and join National Institute of Biomedical Genomics as an academic coordinator. So National Institute of Biomedical Genomics, or NIBMG, is an autonomous institute of the Department of Biotechnology, which was established in 2010. So we are still very young. We have 13 faculty and close to 50 students. and this includes both PhD and integrated PhD students. We have 35 active projects, and some of these ones are big multi-institutional projects which require both national and international collaborations. Now, the mandate of the Institute is to use biomedical genomics for human health and disease, and also to generate capacity in biomedical genomics. So as a part of capacity building, NIBMG has been involved in a lot of outreach programs, trainings, and in organizing various trainings and workshops. So my job at NIBMG is of an academic coordinator, and it encompasses a lot of different roles. So the first and foremost, the job that was assigned to me was grant management. So at the moment at the Institute, the grants are managed by the individual PI along with the admin and the finance department. So my work is to set up a grants office, which would help in both pre-award and post-award grants management. Now, since NIBMG is a small institute, this does not take up all of my time, and I do get to be a part of different activities at the institute. Another important part of my work is coordinating the academic program. So this is, of course, both their PhD and the integrated PhD program. So this involves organizing their interviews, their academic reports, which have to be submitted, they're addressing their fellowship-related queries, and so on and so forth. I am also responsible for submitting some of the institutional reports. So one such report was submitted on the indicators of scientific excellence, which was submitted to the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office. So I was responsible for collating that information from different departments at the Institute and different people, and putting that all together and uploading it on the online portal. Then apart from that, we also have to submit regular reports to DBT. So these involves monthly reports, weekly reports, and also now in COVID times, we have had to send daily reports so about our research activities. So I'm responsible for collating that information from faculty or students and getting them ready for submission. Next part of my job is also updating the social media pages of NIBMG. So we have a Facebook page and a Twitter handle, and we regularly update that with any new research publications, research highlights, or any institutional events which are going to happen. Also, because of my scientific background, I assist in preparing some research infographics which can be used for social media or for various reports. I'm also involved in organizing different institutional events and preparing flyers for these events. Now, one such event was the WebHub Summit, where NIBMG had organized a session, and this involved collaborating with different national and international experts in the field, and I was involved in that. And as I mentioned, traditionally, NIBMG has been involved in a lot of outreach activities, and one such event was organized just last week as a part of India International Science Festival, and I was a part of that. So overall, my work at NIBMG in the coming years. Now with this, I'd like to thank India Alliance and IRMI for giving this opportunity to talk to you, and these are my contact details. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Tuhina, and I will be presenting my findings on Exploratory Research Review, which is a presentation on the job competencies and skill sets that are required for the research managers. So this is an exploratory research review, and I will be presenting my findings on this. So first, the introduction and objective of exploratory review. The introduction or the rationale for conducting this exploratory review is that research managers play a myriad of roles in biomedical research institutions, and their role is multifaceted. It involves funding opportunities, finding pre- and post-award research management, as well as managing the knowledge transfer and commercialization. So the execution of role as a research manager requires specific skill sets and competencies. However, not much research is available to adequately evaluate these skills and competencies. So the aim and objective of my systematic review. The aim of my systematic review was to synthesize the findings of existing literature on the core competencies and skill sets of research managers working in biomedical research institutions. And this review actually explored the following research question, which was, what are the core competencies and skill sets that are required to be a successful research manager? So the method that we adopted for the systematic review was conducting a systematic search on certain engines, search engines, and this systematic search was conducted by two researchers independently. We included studies which were conducted in biomedical research institutions between uh, 2000 to 2020. The exclusion criteria of certain studies was because they were duplicate articles or articles that were not relevant to our research review. So the results of the 12 studies that we identified, only 5 met the inclusion criteria. Of these, 2 studies were based in Asia and 3 were from Europe. 4 studies were cross-sectional and the rest were mixed method studies. So I would now like to share the findings of these studies. The first study was conducted in Iran. It was a cross-sectional study which was conducted in the year 2003. It assessed the managerial skills of the research managers. It was a self-administered questionnaire consisting of 21 items, and the study assessed the technical skills as well as the conceptual skills of the research managers. It also tried to find out the time distribution of the research managers on each of these skills, as well as what motivated the research managers for their work. In all, 50 participants or research managers responded to the study. The results of the study was that the mean emotional intelligence of the research managers was 115.01, about how the research managers considered their skills to be of moderate or weak degree. Research managers assess themselves weak in certain technical skills, and they also self-reported that they required certain help for developing their conceptual skills. The distribution of research managers' time was most on the methodological skill, and it was least on the technological skill. It was also reported in the study that a personal incentive had more effect on the functions of research managers, and the organizational task was the second most important effective factor that motivated the research managers for their work. So the study concluded that the managerial skills of research managers should be empowered within the framework of in-service programs. The second study was again conducted in Iran after almost a decade. It was again a cross-sectional study that determined the relationship between emotional intelligence of conflict management strategies among the educational and research managers. It was a cross-sectional study that was conducted among 81 respondents, and it adopted 3 questionnaires to collect the data. The results of the study was that the mean emotional intelligence of the respondents was 115.01, about how the research managers use avoidance, and about almost a similar numbers used collaborative strategies. The research managers and females use control strategy more, and it was also reported that there was no statistically significant correlation between the emotional intelligence with the strategies. So therefore, the study concluded that it is necessary to improve the top managers' performance by making them adopt certain emotional intelligence strategies. The third study was done in Croatia in the year 2016, and it was a type of applied research that explored and analyzed the assessment of research management competencies on a sample of Croatian academics. It was done using an online survey, and the study adopted Likert type scale for assessment of data. 130 participants from 7 public universities participated in the study. The results were divided into certain competencies which were considered most important by the respondents, and there were certain competencies which were considered less important. So the competencies which figured high in the list of respondents was implementation of projects significant for community needs, familiarity with the strategic planning principles, familiarity with program project management, possibility of financing the projects of personal interest, and forming research networks. And the items that listed low or that were considered less important were also these items. So the study concluded that male and senior academics assess the research management competencies as statistically more important compared to female and junior academics. The third study was conducted in Italy in the year 2018. The study groups were managers and professionals. It was a mixed method design to identify specific managerial competencies perceived as crucial by the healthcare professionals in order to improve their performance and develop suitable human resource management practices. Since it was a mixed method design, therefore literature review and focus group discussions was used, and 1,500 healthcare workers participated in this study. So the results of the study were again divided into most important components and least important components. The most important components are listed over here. These are defining goals, planning organization and processes, making assessments, interpersonal communication, and creating a collaborative atmosphere. The items which were considered least important, that is which had less than 5% of the shared preferences, were project design, drafting procedures, planning logistics, planning user flows, using information flows, and leading projects. So the study concluded that there are studies on managerial competencies in the field of health, but there was no shared vision regarding the exact competencies that are required for the research managers. So the study stressed on the need of a common or shared vision which are required for developing the competencies and skill sets of research managers. The final and the last study was conducted in Brazil in the year 2018. It was again a cross-sectional study which employed correlation analysis and was done using a survey monkey. So the results of this study was that women want to be better than men in people and research management, and postdoctorate researchers want to dominate more in managerial competencies. So the conclusion of my systematic review was that it was observed that literature focusing on competencies and skill sets required for research managers working in biomedical research institutions is very fragmented. There is no shared vision regarding the exact competencies and skill sets required, and it is therefore essential to identify these competencies and skill sets so that they can be nurtured to improve institutional research performance and contribute towards the institutional growth. So thank you so much. My contact details are given here, and thank you for giving a patient hearing.
My name is Ponnari Gottipati. I am a research management, science education, and outreach consultant based in Hyderabad, in India. Today, I'm here in my role as a consultant grants manager at LV Prasad Eye Institute in Hyderabad. I joined LV Prasad Eye Institute in April 2019, and based on my experiences and learnings over the past year and a half, I'm here to present to you what I think are 5 essential elements required for a successful career in research management at an institution in India. Very briefly, LV Prasad Eye Institute started in 1987 with a mission to provide equitable eye health to all sections of the society. What started off as one clinical facility now is a network of 212 eye care centers spread across different states and an international center in Liberia. As you can see here, it has many different operations, but research is integral to operations at LV Prasad. And I was hired here to set up a grants office, which is a central research administration facility while integrating the existing administrative structures at the institution. I provide both pre-award and post-award support here. And over the past year, while streamlining the grants processes, I have also initiated setting up an online grant management portal with the help of an IRMI grant, and I'm thankful to IRMI for the funding opportunity. So as would be the experience of many research managers across different institutions in India, setting up such facilities is a huge uphill task. You know, first of all, such positions are few and far between in India, and therefore personnel in such roles are often left to fend for themselves. And secondly, there is no clear defined role. More often than not, you will find that you will make your, you will define your own roles and responsibilities as you go along. And the challenge with such an approach is that initially, at least, there could be a mismatch between the expectations of the individual versus that of the organization. And as many of you know, and as has previously been pointed out by the previous speakers, lack of professional training is also a major challenge in the country. And most of the people in research management roles actually learn on the job, and therefore the onus is once again on the individual. And thankfully, this is now changing with initiatives like IRMI and also with some training opportunities by organizations like India Bioscience and institutions like ISER Pune, and that is definitely a positive trend. And finally, not having a clear career progression for such roles at institutions is also a challenge. More often than not, you would find that as years go by, your responsibilities keep on increasing. You're given a lot of added responsibilities, whereas you may find that you kind of feel stagnant in your role at the institution. And that definitely is a challenge. And my role at LV Prasad has also been an uphill task. It was also a steep learning curve. But I think what helped me in my role over the past year and a half has been an enabling environment and operational freedom. Therefore, I'm going to present to you the 5 things that I think were very important for me to succeed in my role at LV Prasad. First and foremost is the institutional support. Having the key top leadership at the institution believe in this role and support this role, and also believe in the value that such roles could add to the organization, I think is very, very crucial to make an impact in such roles. And if the ethos of the organization match with your personal beliefs, then that is just an added advantage. So that would definitely be a top of my list. And secondly, research management is a facilitatory role. You are liaising between researchers, administrators, finance, and funding agencies. And therefore, building trust with these individuals right from the beginning is very, very crucial. When you have both researchers and administrators recognize that you are there to make their life easy, that is when your job becomes easy. Not having trust, I think lack of trust is the biggest roadblock for such a position, I would say. Thirdly, as a new entrant in a new role at an institution, every day you will meet many individuals who have a lot more experience than you do, and they have a lot to teach you. So before suggesting any sweeping reforms, I think it is important to understand why things are done a particular way at the institutions. And therefore, going into this role with an open mind to learn from different people would be very, very important for this role. And my fourth point would be being flexible in your approaches and adapting to the needs of the organizations. These are, again, very important and crucial for providing impactful support. And finally, as again my previous speakers have mentioned, there is a lacune in training in the country, and in order to compensate for that lacune, one way to do that would be to build a network of peers from different institutions across the country. I'm very thankful for all my mentors and peers from different institutions who were with me every time I was stuck or every time I needed their insights. Having this network to bank on was and still is very, very useful to me in my role at the institution and has helped me immensely. So similarly, I also hope that these learnings of mine over the past year and a half would also help someone who's starting off in such a role at an institution in the country. On that note, I would like to thank IRMI and India Alliance for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
We had 4 wonderful vignette talks, which basically gave an introduction of entering into the research management role. We are going to follow this up with 4 talks that will address advancement in the role. We will start with Dr. Vandana Gambhir's presentation. Dr. Vandana is the organizer of this IRMI conference. She is a principal technical officer at ISR Pune. She is talking about her talk is titled as Expanding the Research Management Responsibilities is a Sign of Success or a Risk of Dilution. That is, after you enter the role, when you expand, is it a sign of risk or a sign of dilution? It's a success or dilution. Let's have Vandana's talk, please. Good afternoon. Welcome, Dr. Vandana Gambhir. Thank you for joining us for this session on career. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Vidya, and thank you, IRMI, for selecting my abstract to talk about on the career session. My name is Dr. Vandana Gambhir. I am Principal Technical Officer in the Branch Office and IPR Cell at ISR Pune.
Great. Dr. Vandana, you had a very good experience in research before you choose research management as a profession. Like, could you please highlight how your experience in research, scientific research, has a role to play in your current profession as a research manager?
Thank you, Vidya, for asking me this question. So, in grants management, when I joined, there was this particular requirement of a researcher and not of a non-researcher. So the reason why I also believed and got interested in doing the grants management was, at that point of time, was I had to review the grants proposals and then find the reviewers for it. So unless and until you know the field, you cannot find good reviewers for it, because reviews play a very, very critical role. And this is what I am talking about when I was grant advisor at DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance. So moving afterwards is where when I left that role and I joined ISR Pune as their grants manager. At that point of time, also I strongly feel, and I think that's what the institute was also looking for, person who had strong knowledge of the research. So I'll give you a little background of my research experience. I did my bachelor's from Punjab University in microbiology. So during that time, I was introduced to a lot of disciplines of the biology, including biochemistry, microbiology, parasitology, statistics, and all. And afterwards, then I did my postdoc at Guru Nanak Dev University in biotechnology department. Following that, I started with my PhD studies at IMTech Chandigarh, which is a CSI lab, and I worked in the field of infectious diseases. In the more closely is we're looking at vaccine and diagnostic markers for tuberculosis. After my PhD, I did postdoc at Queen's University, and I continued with my interest in infectious diseases. I got to work more into immunobiology and into pathology of HIV. So all this combining together, when I can say I have worked with the microbes, I also got a small stint to work with plants when I had got a project during my master's. So having worked with microbes, worked with plants, worked with the animals, and worked with humans for HIV samples is where I got a wide experience of two aspects. One is of the research, what are the structures of research, what are the processes involved in it, and also how to structure a grant proposal for funding. So I guess that these two things will only one can learn when you are a researcher. A non-researcher will never learn these kind of processes.
Right. So you rightly said that it helps you to be in the shoes of a researcher, even for becoming a research manager. Not essential, but it also helps. And thank you for that. So knowing from your profile, I know that you wear various hats. You are a grants manager, and then you have been involved in intellectual property management, and you also are very prominent in training the scientific community in India through your program management and other workshops that you're organizing in your institute. So like, what is your thought on diversification and generalization in this profession? Is that essential, or a specialization is going to be possible? Like, can you please give your perspective on this?
Sure, Vidya. So I'll answer in two parts. One is about the diversification of the roles, and the second is why is it I am doing, why is it interesting to me that I am doing it, because I mean it involves a lot of my energy when I need to diversify. So first is why I am doing it. So grants management was very easy to step into the shoes because I had background of research. All I had to know about is what are the structures for grants management in an organization and what are the policies behind it. Once you know about it, then actually there's a lot of work you can handle. And for a growing institute like I serve, which is just into its 14th year, and we have the mandate to grow in another 5 to 6 years exponentially, you can very well think about how more and more new faculty and researchers and scientists will join, and accordingly the grants will keep coming. So there is no actually time, with me, if I can say that, to think about diversification. So all this diversification actually occurred prior to joining ISA. And what I felt at that time was, when I was at India Alliance, is where I needed to understand another aspect which is very integral to research. It was intellectual property. Because at that time also the government of India was emphasizing a lot that researchers should have awareness about IPR. Did have awareness about IPR when I was doing PhD at the Institute of Microbial Technology, because CSR mandate is that there should be generation of knowledge and knowledge to economy strengthening, right? So I wanted to build on that understanding of IPR. I wanted to understand the laws and also about how IPR agreements, particularly terms and agreements for IPR, should go into research agreements. So that I learned before. But when I joined ISER, I slowly started seeing which are the more online courses available. At that point of time, I came across Viper, and every year I used to take one new course on it and then gradually build upon my understanding. So this is how I was able to do along with my job responsibilities. So as a researcher, you want to grow, you want to build your knowledge. This is same in with same interest I took up IPR. And now why I have taken up this responsibility of doing workshop in the field of scientific project management or scientific project financial management is because I have feel that it's very important to share the knowledge. Now, there are not many research managers or grants managers in the country. So what knowledge I have gained in this field as well as a light field, and there are many experts which are available doing excellent job. They know the art of handling this management, and many of them, they are basically scientists, right? So I invite them to our workshop to share their knowledge with the participants, because so that both both category of people, they join my workshop. One is who are into this role or who have just started into this role, and another is the new academic assistant professors who have joined, as well as the leaders who are in the dean's role. So they also never got a chance to learn these structures and processes. So it gives quite a fulfilling experience to me.
All right. Thank you, Vandana, for that session. We will discuss this more at the question and answer session, and also the reflex instructions, which is going to follow this in the Microsoft Teams. Now I would like to introduce the speakers of the next three talks, starting with Mr. Godwin Fernandez, who represents an NGO, a research groups manager at Sangat, Goa. Mr. Godwin, could you please turn your camera briefly? And we have with us Dr. Madhuri Datta, who is the Senior Research Manager at George Institute of Global Health, New Delhi. Dr. Madhuri Datta, would you please turn your camera on? And we have with us a representation of a researcher, Dr. Asad Sahir, who is Assistant Professor at IIT Ropar in the Department of Chemical Engineering. He leads the professional development at IIT Ropar and as a leader in the Carry Development and Corporation Relations Centers. We are going to have their talks following this, starting with Mr. Godwin Fernandez. His talk is titled Journey from a Researcher to a Research Manager, followed by Dr. Madhuri's. She talks about standardizing designations and remunerations of research managers for a sustainable career in Indian institutions. And we have Dr. Asad Sahid's conceptual framework for research scholars towards developing future research managers. Let's start with Mr. Godwin's talk.
Hello everyone, I'm Godwin Fernandez from Sangat, Addiction Research Group, Research Manager of Addiction Research Group. I'm delighted to be here to share with you the journey, learnings and challenges of being a research group manager. This is Sangat headquarters in Goa. Sangat is an Indian research NGO founded in 1996. Sangat's mission and expertise lies in developing and evaluating innovative solutions to increase access to evidence-based mental health care in low-resource settings. We have 3 hubs within India, that's Bhopal, Pune and Delhi, and we have around 150 staff overall. The Addiction Research Group is a group within Sangat, the mandate of which is producing and disseminating knowledge on the treatment of addiction, particularly in low-resource contexts. The group has been awarded 15 research grants until date, which include studies on the nature and progression of alcohol use disorders, intervention for harmful drinking, and intervention for problems related to alcohol use, including violence. The group consists of principal investigators, project coordinators, field researchers, and other staff, including translators, data, and administrators. I started my journey in the Addiction Research Group as research coordinator 5 years ago. While I was coordinating the project, I was exposed to different processes of grant management. I have been leading the research group as a group manager since 2018. The journey from research coordinator to a group manager was filled with enriching experiences with learning and challenges, which I will share in my next few slides. The method I used for my presentation is self-reflection and feedback from core group. By core group, I mean the leadership group, which discusses research management issues within the addiction research group. The core group consists of investigators, project coordinators, team leaders, etc. We meet on a monthly basis to discuss issues affecting the functioning of the group and the staff. I also reviewed systemic changes that were done to the group in the last 5 years for a smooth functioning of the group and staff development. When I talk about my learnings and challenges, I will talk about my experiences and those that contributed to ARG as a group. While working with the addiction research group in Sangat, I was provided the opportunity to work on a number of projects focused on developing and evaluating community-based care. The experience helped me understand gaps in grant management, particularly related to capacity of and coordination between research staff and Sangat administrative and finance team. Through continued support from my mentors, I was empowered to introduce innovative approaches in research grant management, such as centralizing key functions, one of which is having a common budget meeting along with the Sangat finance team. My experience helped me grow professionally as I learned how to lead teams and the group on job to rigorous supervision, and also provided me opportunity to learn financial forecasting, ethics submission, and staff supervision. Through this, I learned that having a mentor to support you early on plays a very important role in development of any career, including research management. One should try to identify a mentor who has the domain knowledge and is willing to share their time and expertise. As a research group manager, I manage a range of research projects with the staff across various levels, majority of whom are new, junior, and early career researchers. I learned about the importance of building leadership capacities through delegation, hand-holding, and formal capacity building, as a result of which I built up the capacities of relatively junior staff who are now leads within the respective projects. As a result of this growth opportunities for junior staff, we could address the leadership gaps in the organization and also allow for more efficient working. As the organization grows, it is important to build and empower staff. Although training staff is a slow and lengthy process requiring continuous supervision, it is worth the effort and helps the organization in the long run. In the addiction research group, we created positions to delegate powers downwards, such as we appointed team leaders for the field staff, data, and administrators. Creating such positions help in acknowledgement of a staff contribution to the group and also create platform to develop leadership skills. We provided opportunities for staff to lead task-based groups with an intention to build their skills and empower them for future leadership roles. Most early career researchers, including me, have been trained on the job to understand grant writing and management. However, there are inherent gaps in our grant writing, such as lack of knowledge about calls for proposals, grant writing such as conceptualizing the problems, etc., and grant management skills which can be addressed through formalized capacity building and sharing of best practices across individuals and groups. For someone working on the management side of research group, keeping up to date with research practices and processes can be a challenge. There is a need for basic knowledge of research so as to help understand and troubleshoot issues affecting projects and teams. I was fortunate to get this experience in my initial years with the addiction research group when I coordinated 2 research projects that involved interaction with the stakeholders, supervision of staff, and data management. As the group grows in strength and work, there is continuous need to centralize and continuously adopt systems to streamline research processes essential for good grant making. Successful planning and implementation of systems requires adequate buy-in, bottom-up approach, and understanding of context, all of which are challenging because of the burden of workload, lack of capacities in staff, and lack of collaboration. In the addiction research group, we try to address these issues by implementing systemic changes based on the need time to time. Some of the changes that we set up are support system within the group. Any staff joining the addiction research group undergoes a detailed induction process, which includes a detailed discussion of the work of Sangat and addiction research group, including the past projects. Organization policies and other protocols are presented to the new joinee. One-to-one meetings with the investigators and the coordinators are organized to discuss roles and responsibilities and to check for any support that may be required. The newly recruited staff are introduced to Sangat support scheme for psychosocial support and work buddy system. We assign a senior member of the team as work buddy to the new recruit, and the work buddy is expected to establish rapport with the new staff, meet face-to-face for 30 minutes weekly during working hours, and answer questions, queries, if any, from the new recruit. We organize annual retreats for the group. It's a day away from work to discuss and plan future activities for the group. Staff are given the opportunity to choose their mentor and encouraged to have regular sessions for career advancement. We also discuss potential areas for the addiction research group to research in the future and align each one's role within the ARG vision. In the addiction research group, we have the monthly budget meeting, which are attended by the investigators, coordinators, administrators of the project, and members of finance team. In this meeting, we present budget of each project, review the expenses, and plan for future project activities. These meetings help the coordinators to discuss the plans with the investigators, build grant monitoring skills, and also create to get advice from finance team. Core groups are formed based on specific tasks such as data and admin, and also based on leadership positions such as investigators and coordinators. We have the project management team meeting every alternate week to discuss grant related issues, both research as well as administrative concerns. Such meetings provide a support to me as a group manager and also help in encouraging a consultative decision-making process. In the addiction research group, we encourage sharing of resources across projects within the group, that is human resource, finances, equipments, etc. Sessions form a very integral part of our research group. We take part and celebrate successes of a staff, such as attaining higher education, a successful grant by a member of a group, especially if it's by an early career researcher. Away days are time for staff to relax and refresh themselves. These events help build staff unity. Sangat is awarded the IRMI Research Management Fellowship, and we hope to improve the research management capacities of our staff further with the help of this fellowship. In the coming years, we also wish to establish the research office to support pre and post grant management processes. To conclude, I would say that exposure and opportunities provided by Addiction Research Group has helped me to handle the responsibility of a research group. However, I wish that there are more training opportunities available in the future for anyone seeking to make a career in research management similar to this one provided by India Alliance. Thank you so much for your patience, listening, and interest.
Hello, I'm Madhuri. I'm a senior research manager at the George Institute for Global Health, and also I'm affiliated with the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. Today, I'm going to talk about standardizing designations and remuneration of research managers for a sustainable career in the Indian institutions. And this is under the thematic area of developing the successful research manager. So why do we need to standardize? Now, this was a very existential question. I would like to talk about my sort of career growth. I started off as a grants advisor at the Wellcome Trust India Alliance. And then I began my stint as the head of research administration at Public Health Foundation of India. Then I was the grants head at IIHMR, and now I'm the senior research manager at the George Institute. So I have gone through 3 different designations in 3 different organizations, and I wonder what next. And I wanted to find out from, international and national sources about what would be my next step to transition from the mid to the senior level position in research administration. And so what I wanted to standardize was look at designation system based on education, qualification, experience, and also to get an inkling into the salary system for the designation. And how to standardize is, of course, I wanted to see what is prevalent, what information is available in both national and international sector. So the how actually brought me to the objectives of this particular talk. One was to analyze the designation systems, education background, and expertise of professionals from well-established research management offices in international organization, because I wanted to see international organization, how they map their research managers, because they've been around for quite a longer bit than in India. And I also wanted to look at the Government of India scientist grades for scientists who are actually stationed in the headquarter division of DBT and ICMR, where, like research administrators, they also have to manage a portfolio of projects and not just one lead on one research project. And so if I could cull out a list of recommendations from these 2 sort of studies that I will do for standardizing designation and salaries of research management staff, then I could possibly have a framework to inform my own organization and also those organizations which are new in making the research administration as a new field in their organization. So the information source, I looked at 8 associations, research management associations. We all know that there are different research management associations in different continents and different countries. So I selected 8 of them, like in the Australia one, the UK one, the US one, South Africa one. And these are the names of those associations. Now, the executive body or the executive members of these associations are all research administrators from different universities and institutes in these continents and countries. So I looked at their public profile or the LinkedIn profile that I had of these research managers. And from that, I sort of gained knowledge about, what kind of designations they've had over their career, what kind of educational background they've had. And then I also looked at the designation and experience and pay scale of scientists in the DBT and the ICMR headquarters from the websites. So when I looked at the 67 personnel, 67 executive members of these research management associations from international associations, I found that 64% had a qualification in arts or management and 36% had a degree in sciences. 37% had a PhD as their highest qualification, and 80% had a master's as their highest qualification. Almost all who had a master's degree, irrespective of a PhD degree, were promoted to managers or heads of their divisions, and a few had also reached the director level positions. And the popular designation in research management was that 22% began their careers with an officer designation. An officer could be a research officer, a research support services officer, grants officer, and then 44% began their careers as managers. And of the 58% who went on to become directors, 22% were also heads of their divisions. What I'm getting at is 4 clear sort of designation norms, starting with officer, then manager, then heads of the divisions and directors. This was what was prevalent from my sort of analysis. So for fresh masters who joined research administration as a career, the entry point is usually an officer of some kind, and then they get promoted to research manager, heads of research management, and then director. And for a PhD, usually they would enter as a research manager and then follow that path onwards. So what were the observations? First important observation was that it seems possible to develop a career in research administration with a background education in any area. It doesn't have to be sciences. And we are talking about these huge universities and institutes with multiple divisions. And the research support division, the director is not from sciences. So that's a possibility. And then 17% were involved in research when they began their careers in projects or programs, and then they went into research administration. So, majority of them did not even do any sort of research study or were not involved in a research program before they made the transition into research administration. And even though research administration was the primary role of how they started, but they gathered a very specific specialization towards the end. So most of the directors of their research support divisions were also specialized in some other field like IP or legal or communications or finance or development. So it's good learning for me, because when we go into the directorial or the senior sort of research administrative roles, then it will be good to also have a specialization that we bring in to the organization other than just regular research administration. So the objective 2 was to review the Government of India scientist grades. And for this, again, I have mentioned this before, I took the information from DBT and ICMR websites. Actually, ICMR has just published a regulation in September 2020 of the pay scales, age limits, and also the experience and educational background. And so I used that. That's the most recent. So when I looked at the DBT grant management division, I found that their scientists were having a designation of scientist C, E, and G, whereas in ICMR, it's right from B and goes up to G level. This is a sort of table that I pulled out from the ICMR salary scales, education and upper age limit. So if you look at the scientist B, somebody who has a first class postgraduate or a fresh PhD can enter as a scientist B, has a level 10 pay scale and an upper age limit of 35 years. So I've sort of looked at it to find out how we can sort of align it to research administrators as well. And we also know that there are different institutes with different research focus. So if there is a physics institute or a mathematics or engineering, then probably a post-graduation would be sort of the highest, degree in which somebody can be recruited in research administration, and it will differ from organization to another. So scientist C would be somebody with a postgraduate degree or a PhD with 4 years of R&D experience. Similarly, if we go down this list, we'll find that scientist E and F and G and the director level would also have, in addition to the post-PhD experience, they would have some sort of managerial level experience of leading a team. So I have used these to sort of have an alignment with the international designation system and also the Indian scientist level pay grade. So for a scientist B, it could be somebody in a research officer sort of recruitment position, who could be a master's degree holder or a fresh PhD and would be level 10. Similarly, scientist C would be equivalent to somebody who's a research manager designation and would have a PhD and 2 to 4 years of post-PhD experience. Scientist E would be somebody who's a senior manager, senior research manager 2. I have actually split up the senior research manager 1 between scientist D and senior research manager 2 in scientist C, with the observation that from scientist E onwards, it would be nice to have a research administrator who would also be leading a team of people under them, and with 6 to 10 years of post-PhD experience. Similarly, scientist F would be equivalent to a head of the division, and scientist G would be the director of that particular division. And I've just taken the basic sort of pay scale that is available with each position in the ICMR framework. So the observations were that it is possible to devise a salary versus experience system through the DBT and ICMR HR policies, and flexibilities in qualifications can be made as per need and focus of the organization. And it is also possible to have an experience-based appraisal system if an organization is looking at building a research administrator division or a support division, then they can look at these, designations. So my recommendations would be Government of India designations and pay scales can be used to standardize salaries for research managers. International designation norms can be used to standardize designations, especially in several non-government organizations who do not follow the scientist B to F or G levels. And then range of experience and specializations can be used in the appraisal system. Before I can say thank you to everybody, I just want to reiterate that it is important to have a very standardized sort of designation and appraisal system and salary norm. Otherwise, research administrators and research managers would be just recruited based on anything that the organization has. And it will be nice to inform that organization that there is a system, there is a particular system, and I think more and more people would like to get into research administration if they knew that there is a proper career path and career designation and pay scale. So thank you all for being patient and listening to me, and I would like to thank my organization, George Institute for Global Health. I would also like to thank the IRMI Fellowship and India Alliance. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to present amongst you at the India Research Management Initiative Annual Conference 2021. I am Asad Sahir. I am the Head Professional Development of Career Development and Corporate Relations Center and an Assistant Professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering at IIT Ropar. So I would like to acknowledge first and foremost Dr. Savita Iyer, who is the chairperson committee of this conference, for giving the opportunity to share these ideas as an educator amongst all of you. Also, thanks are due to the IRMI Annual Conference 2021 team and to Dr. Sarah Haider Iqbal, who introduced me as a chemical engineer to the wonderful organization India Alliance DBT Welcome. Also thanks are due to the Career Development Corporate Relations Center colleagues from IIT Ropar. And I would like to share a disclaimer here that the views that I'm expressing in this presentation are personal and may or may not reflect the current policy of my current or previous institutions. So the first aspect which I'd like to discuss about is the way in India scientific research and development research spending has really evolved. If we may see from 2004 to 2005 and comparing the figures a decade later, roughly the R&D spending has rose about 3.5 times in one decade, which is substantial for an emerging economy like India. Although as a percentage of the GDP, This is on the lower side. We want to do better with the BRICS countries, but research and development, especially in science and technology, has taken a center stage. And with the emerging trends, as a nation, we are committed to innovation. We are committed to helping our investigators, our researchers to do better. And that essentially requires that we appreciate research management as a discipline to move forward. If we may understand that research management is just like a discipline where you are helping a research community to perform better. It's just a performance enhancement coach. It helps the institution perform better. It helps people associated with the institution to do better. And with this increase in spending as a nation, we really need to reflect upon how we can do better. And as in the coming slides, the what I wish to share here is the motivations behind having thinking this through at a very early stage from an educator's point of view, that how our research scholars can do better, and then perhaps understand the current better research management practices and how they can help in aiding the economy. This figure all over here is the national research and development expenditure, which has grown substantially since the 1990s, which was under around 5,000 crores to about 115,000 crores in 2016-2017. This rise has been phenomenal, and this essentially requires that the way that we have been doing our research has changed substantially. And there are a number of things which are also embedded in this figure also do realize that there has been an increase in our internet connectivity. Knowledge is becoming more um, is becoming more democratized, and availability is increasing, and therefore that has helped us also with a strong focus from the government of India on having a strong research and development potential in leading to higher research and development spending. This has also resulted in the number of science, technology, engineering, math graduates which are graduating from our country. We are the second largest um, um, in terms of population who of having the science, technology, engineering, math graduates. We actually graduate about 2.6 million as per the 2016 data, which is substantially large. Also, the recent National Science Foundation data from the 2020 report gives an indication that as compared to 2000 to 2016, we have also increased the number of doctoral degrees in science and engineering as compared to other nations. And you can also see the meteoric rise of China, and we are trying to also catch up over there. Furthermore, we also look into from the recent compiled data, and when we compare from an economic basis, that what has been the performance of various economies when it comes to the science and engineering articles, when we see from on a region-wise basis and a country and an economy-wise basis. In 2000s, we used to publish about 2% of the world's science and articles, engineering articles, which has now increased to 5%. And also the number has increased as we in terms of the thousands. Of the particular notable thing is that certain economies have really enhanced their performance. For example, China and South Korea have also substantially done much better towards this performance. So we are now in a global race. We are positioned globally, and the indicators related to STEM, related to the number of PhDs and the number of articles that are increasing are all corroborated by the data which is there. Another important aspect which I'd like to bring about is the foreign direct investment in research and development heads, which are primarily which comes under three major categories. One is design, development, and testing. The other is education and training, and the third one is the core R&D. The composition is different based on different manufacturing sectors. Of particular note, I would like to point out biotechnology, which has about 97.3% foreign direct investment in total R&D, and the medical devices, which is about 89.3%. And perhaps this gives an indication that why we are having this kind of discussion in a medical based conference like an India Alliance, because the value of R&D is substantially much realized in a greater sense in these industries, and therefore discussions on research management actually build the backbone. The point that I would like to bring out here is that the developments which are happening in this community should not be only confined here, but have got large-scale implications when it comes to science, technology, and innovation policy. I'm a chemical engineer, and the very fact that we are learning from experts, from the panelists over here, and the findings that they are sharing have a direct implication of what is happening in the classroom at our end. Because first of all is that the fact that I would like to share here is that I am come from the discipline of engineering, which is primarily a design, development, and testing. uh, R&D is quite high, and we want to move more towards the core R&D, how we can make our core research and development much more better, invite more foreign direct investment, because if we are investing more in the core R&D, then naturally that will be translated more into the spirit of being self-reliant, or Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is being proposed by the government of India currently. And we really need to look more deeply at how we can incorporate the best research management practices in the nation. Another important statistic is that how we can foster international collaboration. From the same recent NSF report, when I was seeing a schematic over here, then we observed that the contribution of international collaborations, when it comes to particularly to India, it has been on the lower side, where we collaborate a lot more domestically. How can we improve and foster international collaboration, how we can become more visible, how we can increase mobility, and can research management play a role here, is a question that I had. The second part was which on the same report, which was striking to me, was that why we have not been able to increase the number of top 1% cited articles. What are the factors behind it? What we can do better? As an educator, as a faculty member, these questions always come to my mind, because of the relationships that we have with the Indian Institute of Technology. We are impacted by these numbers. We want to be on the forefront of research, and we want to contribute to this metric substantially, like any other high performing research organization. So there were a few thoughts that came to my mind as an individual, and what we can do at the research institution level. So the first part is that opportunities exist for creating an employment environment which appreciates and values the research enablers. By research enablers, I mean our staff, because we perhaps should pay more value to people who manage our budgets effectively, our labs effectively, create more incentives, as some of the panelists in this session may be also alluding to, that how we can bring this into the mainstream. And the graphs which I had shown before clearly indicate the need. If we have to become an innovation economy, if we have to want to be an innovation leader, then we really need to focus on our culture. Then another important part of the research institution level is that it can we help our faculty and innovators to spend less time on bureaucratic procedures through adoption of plain language. If we see our documentation, then we may come across many documents which are using quite convoluted language. Rules are not clear, implementation becomes a problem, and there's a lot of what people may call as red tape, and which causes a lot of implementation difficulties. Can we use new technologies and emerging technologies like entrepreneurship resource package systems, ERPs, to facilitate our work at the research level? Can we have our innovators develop an open source entrepreneurship resource package, which can be used across the research ecosystem in India, and take it as a national project? These are some thoughts that we can think on the research institution level. Another important concern is that the factor that I'm talking from an educational standpoint here, that faculty and administration are quite kept in different silos, especially when it comes to research. For example, an administrative person may not understand the significance of a scientific instrument and its role when it comes to the lab, and in terms of dealing what is the financial when it comes to dealing with the financial matter. So there's a lot more of understanding and synergization which is required. And that is where the fourth point comes, that can we have personnel who understand both the scientific research and financial accounting, for example dealing with audits, dealing with the financial offices, and can these concerns of the researchers be alleviated, and that can help us in understanding that where our researchers are spending time, where our research scholars are spending time, can we cut down on the time. And that is leads the fifth possible intervention for recommendation, is that can we have developed training programs, especially which can explain the importance of delay in paperwork in a global competition. When we are at the one end, I'm showing, and I'm showing these curves, these graphs which compare us to the global economy, and what does it have its impact to the national R&D indicators and eventually careers of people, because it's time is money, speed is everything. We are in an international competition. People have similar ideas, and it is about that who reaches and who is able to attain with efficiency, and is able to take their team further. So it all is interrelated, and at the institutional level we can think on these measures. At the faculty level, what I would like to think from at my level, what we can also think about is that how we can create a welcoming environment for our incoming research scholars, so that they feel they do not feel the stress, they do not feel the pressure, and try to perform as good as possible. Then we are all there's a lot of discussion on mental health and wellness. Can we just think about a discussion on performance enhancement and cultivating a growth mindset? uh, the whole idea is that why we should take it as an issue, but rather as an opportunity where we can think about that how we can cultivate and motivate our employees, the young research scholars, and think about more about achievement rather than difficulties associated with the research scholars. And I know, understand, and I sympathize with the issues which are happening, and people culture, people management is a major concern on that. And then also we should appreciate the fact that our country provides a very nice opportunity to learn the best diversity and inclusion practices, which can help better prepare our students for a global career and better connectivity. And also we should think about that how we can depoliticize the research lab, because the fact is that if you cannot learn collaboration within your own institution, then how can you become a better collaborator beyond your lab? And therefore efforts are needed at that level also. Then the crux of the talk, that why we want what we wish to achieve on the research scholar level. So first of all, we have to visualize that the research scholar is essentially a part of the future innovation workforce. So therefore we should utilize the opportunities in the classroom which will help shape India's innovation future. So I'm thinking of a course framework, and I would like the suggestions of the community, the participants, the community members, or that would introducing these aspects to the research scholars on understanding the science, technology, and innovation policy, help them to understand the big picture beyond the research area. Help VT Researcher Development Framework in the United Kingdom has worked on developing individual development plans. Will it be helpful to introduce those ideas to students? Then although they learn aspects related to financial management and accounting when they go to their advisor for a signature, but can we teach our students that how they can manage their laboratories in a better way, and some principles of accounting? Furthermore, what is the impact of waste management? How can they perform the experiments in a sustainable manner? And I'm coming from a chemical engineering background, that can we do more experiments based on green chemistry? Can we think about that how we can manage our resources better? And then also there is some wonderful literature which is there around, especially when it comes to introverts by Susan Keen, by Sheryl Sandberg on inclusion. Beyond the research articles, they should be encouraged to spend some time reading and reflecting on these books. They can be a book discussion, but these conversations are shaping our world. And also things on teamwork, like how do you appreciate people in your workplace? So Gary Chapman and Paul White have a wonderful book on the workplace. So trying to introduce these to the students in a way which may not look burdensome, but the thoughts and the ideas are clarified to them, because our research scholars are very motivated. They are spending a lot of time in terms of getting the articles published in the best available journals, but also we also have to keep in mind about their individual development, and how can the at the research scholar level through a particular course we can motivate them so that they get an appreciation of these ideas. Then also we need to be concerned about that how do we inform them about scientific ethics, and a major one is the conflict management and team building. And in the context of any scientific organization, organizing effective meetings which are decision oriented becomes extremely important. And there is also a need of inculcating awareness of intellectual property and commercialization. So you can see that there is a variety of topics which are linked to the performance of an innovation economy, but at least we can create sort of a sensitization. And when you are thinking from an educational standpoint, that how do you deliver such a course? So first of all, I'll appeal to the people who may be interested in sharing their knowledge. I invite them, and would like their involvement, because there are certain topics which we may need to emphasize, certain need to be de-emphasized. And from a educator's point of view, you find everything is important, but the art is that how do you really tailor your course accordingly. Then we can learn also from from our business schools when they conduct these role plays and collaboration exercises, because what we see is conflict management and team building is extremely important. And if we teach our research scholars the art of collaborating beyond the lab, because within the lab it happens out of necessity to learn a particular technique, but also if we can create those environments where they can learn outside the lab, perhaps they can help impact the metrics on a global scale. The inhibitions, the fears that they have collaborating locally may be inhibited. And there are some wonderful best practices which are available, like a Harvard business case study from Professor Robert Langer, multiple articles and recent work by Professor Jen Heemstra also deserve a mention over here, among many others. So these are my contact details. So I look forward to be connected through our participants through LinkedIn, through Twitter. And essentially, this presentation is not a complete solution, but more towards initiating a conversation on these aspects. And I really once again would like to convey my sincere gratitude to the organizers and for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asad. And I now request all the panelists to turn their webcam on. Mr. Godwin, Dr. Madhuri Datta, Dr. Asad, and I also invite Dr. Savita Iyer to join us. Hello. We had a wonderful session, starting from a basic skill sets and then following it up with addressing the challenges and opportunities for advancement in the career. So there is one question, a pertinent question, I would say, from the participant addressed to Madhuri. Is a certification course aligned with the standardized ranks for research administration possible to implement in the Indian context, and is it necessary?
I would actually say that probably yes, because when I looked at the international personnel, many had accredited certificates from different research management associations. So it can be possible. We'll have to do an analysis.
Would Dr. Savita want to comment on it?
No, I think it's a great idea. Well, first of all, Madhuri, congratulations on this really nice piece of work. It's very nice analysis, and I think it's much needed. It provides a nice framework that we can work towards. And both ideas are really good, to have a certificate program and to have this kind of a structure. I'm sure both these mechanisms in parallel will go a long way in making this a career path in India.
Let's like quickly address about what was covered in the sessions, and I would go one by one and what as panelists, what do you think are the basic skill sets in your own perspectives? Let me start with the researcher perspective. Dr. Asad, if a research manager is working with you, what do you think you would want to see him as a basic skill sets? I guess you are on mute.
Thank you, Vidyaji, for the question, and appreciate you and Savitaji for having this wonderful panel today. Building on the perspectives that other panelists have also shared, actually the research manager has the potential to be a key innovation player in enriching the research ecosystem. And when it comes to skill sets, I think that the first on the softer skill side, which is becoming important, is to inculcate a sense of team building. Alleviating conflicts in the use of research equipment at the very basic level, which I would say that researchers tend to be a little bit more individualistic in certain disciplines where they're developing an environment they can play a major role. Also is the importance that how they can help in getting making the infrastructure more accessible to the researchers. In terms of better management of resources, they can play a major role. Is one of the many insights that the person can play that the individual can play a key role. Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Asad. Mr. Godwin, what would you suggest? Because you have journeyed from a researcher to a research manager, and what would you like to see as a researcher? And when you turn into a research manager, what would you adapt?
Thanks for the opportunity. I think for me, a successful research manager should have good networking skills, because that comes very handy when you network with your own admin, finance, the PIs, as well as the collaborators and funders. So having the skills to network and discuss issues openly is something that a research manager should have. And the next thing that a young research manager who is trying to build a research office should have is the ability to continue learning from expert, learning from all the new things that are there in the field, and learning from other organizations who have already passed this journey. So putting myself in this situation, I feel these are the two important things that a research manager should have when they're starting the journey.
Madhuri, what would you think? What would you add?
So I think Ponnari's talk about the 5 main important things that she actually inculcated was very helpful. I think many of us, align to her thoughts. I also think that softer skills and one-to-one sort of building a relationship with each researcher works very well, because as a facilitator, I think if we sort of have that communication channel with individual researchers, especially who are early career and mid career, that sort of and an interest in their career growth, I think that sort of motivates them to come closer to you. And I would say that in all the organizations that I have worked, many of the researcher colleagues have become very close friends of mine. So I think that sort of an individual relationship building is very important. So because you can take trainings in different things, but at the end of it, it's a human sort of relationship with each person that matters. And I think Simon also highlighted this on the first day, that he already, networked with very different sort of divisions and departments, so that they also listen to you at the end. When you have an input, they are actively seeking your input. I think that should be our goal also.
Yes,
Thanks.
absolutely. Dr. Savita, would you like to add something on this?
Sure, Vidya. So I think research managers have a big role to play in problem solving, because invariably there are various situations that the researchers or other colleagues find themselves in, and some solution has to be put in place. So research managers have to juggle with having a solid process on the one hand, which guides the vast majority of the work, but also have the empathy and the ability to hear the unsaid, maybe understand problems and to find solutions that still work with the process. So I think there are these sort of twin facets to a research manager, being able to follow process and being able to find a way to deal with exceptions.
Absolutely. I would like to follow up on Dr. Vandana Gambhir's talk about the expansion being a sign of success or as a risk of dilution. I would address this question to Dr. Savita because when many participants here are initiating this role, you have started this quite some time ago and are in an advanced position to think about developing this role as a career. What do you think of expansion?
Thank you, Vidya, for that question. And I'm missing Vandana here today. I wish she could have joined us, but nevertheless, I think it's a very interesting problem, the one she has raised. As we go through our careers as research managers, I think there might be a stagnation. There might be a point beyond which we might feel that we are not able to grow and learn and do something different, something that actually has an impact other than just continuing with the status quo. And that can be quite a difficult, uncomfortable position for research managers. And so from that perspective, I think it is throughout one's career, it's good to be curious. It's good to be aware of other ways of thinking, other areas of effort, even if you're not actively doing those things, but having that general curiosity and being aware of different approaches, I would say is actually a great investment of time. It's not a waste of time. And so as you go through into more senior positions in your career, more advanced positions, it's actually good to have a bird's eye view of different teams, how they work, and how that impacts work through your own vertical. So I actually think that Vandana is right, and it's not a risk of dilution. It is actually empowering for your own role. It helps you do your role well if you have this broader understanding and maybe other competencies as well. And I think Madhuri referred to that as well. You found in your analysis that people tend to have some specialization even if they are at senior roles. And I think that also has to do with one's interest, because as research managers, we must always work with our own inherent abilities and interests, and this is something I firmly believe in. And so I think it's quite nice and helpful, regardless of what sort of stage of your career you are at. If you have that one area of specialization, which is your forte, which gives you that solid sort of grounding within your community, but certainly as a more senior research manager, if you have that bird's eye view, that is crucial for the job actually. That's my view.
Thank you. There is a question from the participant asking, does research manager fit better in a scientist role? Probably what he means is the ICMR, the DBT level kind of scientist, or an administrative role. The positions Dr. Madhuri mentioned are limited in most organizations. Can an RM sustain without such regular positions? Since this is, we will start with Madhuri and then follow it up with the other panelists. What do you think, Madhuri? Like, this is a quite essential question. As you correctly mentioned, it's an existential question. What do you think?
You know, what I also think is that many research organizations, and I've worked with like 3 of them now, would like help in sort of some sort of research study that the research administrators also take up. So I've been actually encouraged in all the 3 organizations to get small grants of my own as well. And it's not just mainstream science or research. It can be anything on, say, a review, or data on something pertinent, or getting a grant with a university for a training course or something like that. So that would actually sort of put us in the same sort of line with other researchers and scientists. And even I don't know, because if it's public health or not, there are a lot of engagement grants also that that researchers would like me to take up. And so you will have to look at the opportunities and then define the role that you want. And as Savita said, it also depends on your interest. And the organization, if we have a PhD, we have done research, career, all organizations understand that you have a scientific background. So depending on that, maybe you can sort of tailor-made your own role, depending on your interest. And if you do not want to do it, it is still important to find a motivating factor, which can help you. And so what I did in my analysis was to look at both non-government sectors where scientist norms are not available. Even the researchers don't have scientist designation. Right. So, so that can sort of be used to standardize the salaries. Scientist designations in DBT or ICMR is just a designation. So if you have to look at the experience behind it of managing team, of what kind of work they are doing in terms of managing projects. So that can be sort of aligned to the position. That's what I think.
All right. Thank you, Madhuri. Dr. Asad, being a researcher who is in a career developmental cell, if you have to build a role in your institute, how would you place them? Like there's a follow-up to this question. Would you place them based upon a certain background, scientist having a science background fitting into a certain role of science administration, and people with finance or other background fitting into some other roles? How would you structure this?
Thanks, Vidya, for that question. And just a follow-up to Madhuri's comment over there, and I'll try to tie the two pictures. First of all, my awareness of DBT ICMR is limited, but at least at the Career Development and Corporate Relations Center, which is a part of industrial consultancy and sponsored research, we need to build a conversation that the typical role of an assistant registrar in research, assistant registrar in industrial consulting sponsored research in currently is being defined. Is it being defined from an administrator's point of view, or we appreciate the scientific and the innovation aspects related to it in the job description and in the wants that are, and who's recruiting the person? Is it the registrar who's recruiting the person, or there is a scientific person who is associated in the process, and who's defining the role? Because that was the main motive of my talk, to show all the statistics behind that. We are talking of advanced economies, we are talking of all the global best practices, but are we incorporating them at the administration level? And I really would like to appreciate the India Research Management Initiative, and it's the first conference, and I wanted to take this opportunity also to highlight that if we want to become a research superpower, it's not on the faculty members or the research scholars. A major role is of our administrators, who need to come up on speed onto these matters. And I think that there's an opportunity over here. And the whole idea is that like we do in the Career Development Center, we are very strongly realizing we have been able to do it successfully with our corporate relations roles. But when it comes to research roles, we are on the lookout for people who can help in advancing an institution, who have a scientific background but also know the account side of it. And there, in my opinion, we need to define the role on an organizational level, from a policy level, and we have the people, we just need to map them, is my individual opinion. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Godwin, how does it work at NGO level? Madhuri mentioned that like it's very hard to find, even define a role for a scientist who are like researchers there. So if you have to like build capacity and bring in RM roles in an NGO setup, what will be your suggestions?
Thanks, Vidya. I'm very happy that Madhuri has brought this up for discussion through her presentation. I hope you all can hear me.
Yes.
Um, I should admit that my organization has not thought about putting a grading system or having a different policy because such a need never came up earlier. Now that we are seriously thinking about building this research office, I think we will have to look at this more seriously because when we build this research office, the aim is that it will expand in few years. From one research manager, we will have a team, and having clear policies and grading system will definitely boost the motivation of the team that will follow. So this is something that I take as a learning point, and I'm very happy that Madhuri has presented data and analysis, which my organization could take up seriously.
Right. Dr. Savita, I would invite your comments on this.
I think Godwin has actually said that very correctly. Many institutions are just starting with hiring a single person, and that single person, of course, needs a career path. But Godwin also raises important point that as the team expands, it's very important to have a plan for all the members of the team in terms of their own individual roles and also in terms of a longer term career path. So that's essential actually, not just for private organizations, but for government organizations as well. And to be thinking about how the members of such a team would integrate with all the other administrative teams, and to have clarity on what the research office can offer uniquely, which is distinct from what the finance team or the HR team or the other teams can offer. So institutions really do need to have that plan in place, or at least get started with the thinking, because in my own experience, I mean, this evolves with time. So, but it's important to get started.
Right. This initiative, it's all about it to advise the institutions on the importance of such roles so that such roles gets created, and permanency is in a long way, but at least to create it and sustain it to an extent is what this initiative is also about, to answer this question. There are no further questions from the participants. Do the panelists have questions to one another?
And I do have a question, and I think it arises more from a need. Can we find candidates who are interested to do a postdoctoral, I would say, immersion in research management, like who want to transition a career, and can organizations create such opportunities if they are not in a position to create a permanent position as of now, so that their need is advertising how to go about it?
Dr. Savita?
Any
I'll be
advice
happy
on
to
this
take
point?
that. Sure, but Madhuri, would you like to say something about that?
I'm not sure about postdoc position, but internships can be planned. And, at several different levels, I think individuals are seeking out. I know that Ponari and I actually have reached out to ISER Pune to understand how they do post-award management of funds. So I think it's important that we can have like an internship program where, a new sort of university or institute, if it's thinking about recruiting somebody, can send that person to an established system where they can train and where they can learn. So that can be a possibility. Yes.
Yes.
And through the IRMI network, I think through the IRMI network, we should do this.
Yes. So I completely agree with what Madhuri has to say. And in fact, it just takes my mind back several years when we were setting up the office at NCBS. And in fact, Vidya came and spent some time at the office, as did Manzoor. At that point, it was quite informal. We didn't call it an internship. We didn't have a name for it. But the idea was that we opened up our office to colleagues from other institutions who were trying to do similar things. And it was a learning process as much for us as it was for our visitors. So I think perhaps these kind of steps can be taken forward, and it ultimately depends on the willingness of institutions and your ability to work across. So the network can be very enabling, because at least you'll get to know who the individuals are, who the institutions are, and formal requests can perhaps kind of go from one institution to the other, as was done when Vidya and Manzoor came and visited us. So these are all possibilities. And likewise, I think if an institution is just considering building research management, then another possibility is that you can perhaps take a shorter term view of it. And if there's a person, if there's something where it's kind of like doing an experiment where you need to have some hypothesis, have some implementation there, and to learn from those experiences. So it's a process of trial and error, and that's something that the institutional leadership can set the expectations for. And if you have a good candidate, and if that works out, that's a learning process for the institution as much as for the candidate. I hope that answers your question.
And thank you, Madhuri, and I appreciate Savita for following it up and in mentioning the IRMI network, because especially as an emerging institution, we really recognize the need. And in the talk, essentially, I've outlined the necessity and the large-scale implication it can have, and look forward to build that capacity of an institution.
And Dr.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I'd just also like to mention that through the IRMI initiative, the India Alliance is offering research management fellowships, and these are intended in a way as this sort of trial period. So these are 3-year fellowships. These are for institutions who are wanting to set up research offices, or who are at fairly early stages of building their research offices. And these institutions need to nominate a fellow who will actually kind of build these programs. Godwin here is actually a research management fellow. He's from our first batch, actually, as is Madhuri. And the idea behind the fellowships is that this gives a protected period of time of 3 years for the fellow and for the institution to build these structures, and also to benefit closely from interacting with others in the IRMI network. And of course, through the IRMI initiative, if we know who the fellows are, if we know what the fellows' requirements are, then we can try and come up with the right kind of enabling sort of support systems for those individuals and institutions. So I would welcome you and others to look at the India Alliance website for the details of the IRMI Research Management Fellowships. The next call will be launched sometime this year, and please do look at that. And if you'd like to discuss the fellowships, then you can send an inquiry to the India Alliance.
Thank you. I have a few more. These are like basically not like there is only one question which I would take up at this point. The rest of them are discussions. I would like to inform the participants that there is a reflection sections planned at 2. Please be present to share your views, because this session I would take up queries, and you are most welcome to share your views and also post your comments on the session, so that we can collate and use it for betterment in future. There is one question. Do you think the confidentiality issues would be a constraint if institutions are to offer such internships? I do not understand how confidentiality issues come into play here. If
I can probably respond to that, Vidya. I can.
Yes, I think with that we would come to an end of the session. Confidentiality, just to not miss the point here, confidentiality issues can be addressed by having agreements. If you are operating in a committee, or if you are in any kind of grant managerial roles, you can standardize the format of signing of an agreement of confidentiality. That could be a first step in your role. So just like you operate in any kind of ethics committees, that's one of the important steps. So internships should not hinder any kind of internship program. With that, I think we will.
Vidya, maybe I'll just add a point. I'll just add a point there. I think it is a valid concern about confidentiality because it's, I think the host institution could feel under pressure that they might be inadvertently revealing confidential institutional processes. But so this is the reason why it is not a trivial undertaking for the host institution to have an intern, because the host institution does need to give some thought into the structure of the interactions for receiving the interns, for the material that will be shared with them, for the level of detail of the processes that will be shared with them. So this does need some forward planning to ensure that this is done in a manner that the institution is comfortable with, which is precisely the reason why it is completely it's at the discretion of receiving institutions if this is something that they would be willing to take on. So, yeah.
Yes, I think there is a follow-up that, considering the fact that we are handling a lot of individual proposal and faculty information, I think Dr. Savita has answered this. So we could tailor it like by screening out the confidential information and have it as course materials, which in a lot of other programs, which is still handled using as case studies or other cases. There is one question from my colleague, which I would it's a suggestion. I would request her to please join the network session. She suggests to have some training sessions made compulsory for new recruits, which cannot be at some central level. Maybe IRMI can take the initiatives. Thank you. And I think that is the plan. With that, I think we should wind up, I guess. And I request all the participants to kindly join us for the reflection sections. Your views are very valuable to us. And I thank India Alliance and all the participants to have made all these sessions successful. And it has been a wonderful experience for all of us organizers to be working with all of you in starting this initiative with this conference. And congratulations to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye then.